Well, hello and good morning, everybody. How are we doing? This is Jeremiah, and we are having a webinar. And I got to admit, this is one of my favorite little feature areas of land effects. I know you might be like, what? But, I mean, we did the planting, we did the irrigation, and in talking with different firms, and just kind of came up with these ideas, and it's almost very much, what would a computer programmer think looking at the field of landscape architecture. But talking to these firms, and I guess best worded by one firm where they just kind of mentioned how much they like the software. And they said, well, we're using Adobe Illustrator to do these conceptual drawings, and then a little bit of Photoshop, and they go, gosh, it'd just be neat if we could get all this stuff done inside of CAD. And it was just really exciting to me to bring these elements, which are admittedly easier and to do in Illustrator, and even better looking, but we want the quantities. We want to be able to use the XREF and things, and we'll be touching more than, of course, on this whole life cycle thing of connecting the dots after the fact. So I just liked it because it was just such charting a new course, and really just seeing what can be done inside of CAD. To me, it's always been a really exciting area. So I'm very interested in your ideas and your thoughts. So do please take note of that Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. And I'd even recommend clicking it right now, because you can get it situated. You'll be able to type your questions a little quicker while you're watching. And also, you're going to be able to see any answers that we type to other people's questions. So it makes a great companion. We really want your feedback on things. This is also being recorded, so it'll be available on the website later today. So enough of all of my yapping. I'm going to get this handed over to Amanda, and she's going to take it away.
Thanks, Jer, and good morning, everybody. It's good to have you all back again today, and I've got a really stellar workflow lined up to share, and I know it's going to hopefully help and inspire you into exploring the site tools a lot more. So if you haven't already talked to me, this is me. I've got a brand new name, but I'm the same old person. Same qualifications, landscape architect. I've been working on a lot of projects like this for quite a while. So I've got a lot of ideas to be able to streamline your workflow today. And this is kind of what we're going over today. The design process from concept to construction can actually be applied to pretty much all of the land effects tools, but today we're focusing, like Jer said, on site and hardscape tools in the FX site ribbon in your land effects ribbons. That's basically where we're focusing today, with a little bit of details in there. So the outline today is really simple. You can pretty much see it's quite short. You start with the concept tools. They transform into the RefNote tools for detailed construction documents. And then you take everything you set up from those two and add it into a template for use later. Rinse and repeat on every project. With this last step, using templates, every new project will get faster and faster as you build up a library of past projects. So I get calls from users and work with them on tech support tickets, and they ask simple things like, how do you count up paving in my project? I want to do that now. I can count up plants, I can count up irrigation, but can I count up paving? And so we're going to go through that. Yes, you can. And we're going to go through even more how to quantify it, but also how to set everything up so it's customized to you. You'll be able to jump into your designs a lot faster, because I've said it before and I'm saying it again. The RefNote placing, calling out, and scheduling tools alone will make the first project faster. After that, it only gets better and faster. So we're building that foundation today for our project lifecycle workflow So we're improving that lifecycle workflow today using some land effects tools you might not have used before, or maybe you are and you just want to use them better. So core concepts, let's get into it. So obviously, I'm not outlining the whole design process that you might be familiar with as a landscape architect. I'm definitely cherry picking the parts that apply here to this workflow we're going through today, and kind of lumping inventory and analysis together and concept design together for the purpose of just being able to relate it to different land effects tool groups so you can kind of grasp the concepts today. So first, we have conceptual and schematic design in your workflow. At this point in your design, you're likely working out the broad spaces, the ideal movement paths between them, and how they relate to each other, like what uses need a connection together between each other, and what uses need buffering between them because they really kind of clash a little bit and they need that space. Also, relating everything to the site conditions. So for this, we're going to be using the concept tools in LandFX. These are broad stroke tools, but you get the benefit of some early cost estimating with them as well because they have data associated with them. Our example today is going to be a small backyard, but this is easily scalable, this whole workflow, to even a large park, a streetscape, a plaza, or a whole neighborhood. So I'm giving you some ideas on how to use these, but you can absolutely extrapolate as big and as broad as you want. So as you, with the cost estimate tools, as you develop the design, you can then refine your concept areas more and more because, well, the spaces are really easy to use. They're kind of like when you used to do the little cutouts of the buildings and then have your whole big sheet on a table, and you kind of move all the building pieces all around to get it right into the perfect puzzle piece, puzzle space. That's what you can do with the concept graphics. I'm going to kind of show you how you can do that. Until you get to the point of needing to get specific so that this design can actually be built by somebody. And that's where we get into these construction documents. So the second part, after refining that concept, you move into these construction documents. Here, you're obviously going to convert your concept areas into design areas and objects. And you're going to use reference notes for this. Now the savvy designer, and I hope you're all savvy designers along with me, will then link these to details, a cost estimate, maybe start labeling and scheduling. And if you want to use a manufacturer, you might want to just pull all of that information, and you can do all of that with reference notes, as well as with the detail tools. So those details, you can link them to the detail manager and get those construction documents together. So reference notes and detail manager can do all of this with just a little bit of setup that we're going to go through today. And of course, lastly is the really smart part, templates. So for this, we're going to be using our project list, and we're going to be making a template out of everything we've done up above here. Chances are, if you've used a certain type of paving or a particular bench or outdoor kitchen module, or anything really in site and hardscapes, you're going to want to use it or a similar version of it again on a project maybe tomorrow or next month or 2 years from now. You don't want to have to dig through 20 different projects, maybe file folders, sheets you've printed out, PDFs somewhere in your database, and try and remember how you worded the description of your paving area or your fence. Or you don't want to try and remember what hatch did I use or what block did I use? Can I copy it from way over there? And what cost did I have it at? You want a spot to collect that information, to find it and pull it exactly when you need it. That's what templates do for you. And it can save in your concept graphics as well as your reference notes and your details, all with their applied data. So again, 1, 2, 3, that's what we're going through today. And so with that, we're gonna do this 1, 2, 3 step all over again. Whoops. But this time we're gonna do it all in CAD. So we've kind of done a whole overview of what we need to do today. Let's actually do it. So I'm going to escape out of here. And we're going to go over into CAD, where I have a drawing all set up. So you're following along today in the webinar. We are going to be recording this, so you can follow along again later. Really, to get to where I've gotten to at this point, all I've done is taken an aerial photograph of, hey, this is my house, and traced over it, along with refined it with some site measurements with just polylines, and I saved all of that into an XREF because I always keep my base information inside a separate drawing from where I'm going to be doing any of my hardscape or planting or irrigation or anything. And I XREF it into a blank drawing like I've done here, and maybe copy over some additional polylines for some main items that I want. So that's all I've done in prep work for today. I have also already set up a sheet with a viewport that is scaled. I'm in metric today. Everything we're doing today applies to irrigation, no problem. You just need to pick the scale that's right for your irrigation plan. Or sorry, imperial, not irrigation. Okay, so I've done all of that already in prep, so you can kind of prep yourself beforehand with that, maybe your own version of your own site. So let's kind of go through. So the very first thing you're going to want to do in your project, very start, we kind of cover this on a lot of our workflows, is we're going to start with that project list, and we're going to end with the project list at the end of today. So the very first thing we want to do is I want to save a new project. So I'm going to go and save a new project. There we go, project. And I'm going to give it a number. However I organize my projects, and give it a name. However I like to name my projects. We have a bunch of other webinars that go through recommendations, and I'm using my metric preference set today. And I want it to be blank, so I'm not basing it off of a template just yet. I like to always start with a blank project. That's my preference. And I highly recommend it to you. So I'm going to say OK, and that creates my new project. Here it is, my project manager, and you can see I had already set up a detail folder. If you haven't already, for this workflow especially, I recommend going into Browse, going into Projects, creating your detail folders, and I created a new detail folder right there with this project's number, nice and organized. Again, we have plenty of workflows on the explanation of why I'm doing that. But for today, I'm just saying do it. And I'm going to click OK. So the first place we want to start is with our concept design. Now, I personally pretty much always start my concept design with an actual sketch. So I'll take all of this, I'll throw it onto a sheet, I'll set a scale, and I'll print this sheet out, and I'll start working with it by hand. And that's where I like to fill out all of those broad spaces. And I actually have that already set up, so you can kind of see what I did. Now, this is really simplistic for today's purposes. Obviously, I would probably refine it a lot more if I was doing something else. I just want to give you an idea of where we're going here. So I've kind of identified talk to the client, identified what they want in their life in this project, and figured out how those will probably fit into the existing conditions on site. And these are all very broad strokes. And these are great, but this is a bit too simplistic to then, hey, give to the client and say, here's your here's your conceptual plan. We want to give them something a lot better than this. And since I have the tools for it, I also want to be able to throw in some cost estimating right at the beginning to make sure it's going to fit their budget too, for the whole budget for the project. So that's kind of where we're going. So I'm actually going to go over here to FX Site, the FX Site ribbon. And we are going to go over to Design Develop. We're going to drop that down, and we're going to be working with our Concept Graphics Manager today. So I'm going to click on that, and here is that manager. It's a nice docked palette over here that we can start working with. And you can see I have a bunch of different concept graphics to choose from: areas, lines, nodes, and viewpoints. Just so you know, viewpoints are really just arrows that point to photos that you've taken on site, ideally. So that's more to do with site analysis. So we won't be going into those today with today's workflow. We're just going to be focusing on areas, lines, and nodes. So let's jump into it and let's start making some spaces. So I'm going to start with some nodes. So for instance, I have a lounge and a fireplace area. And I've talked it over with them, and they kind of want a pergola. So I'm just going to go ahead and say new. And we're going to add in, you can see the types of nodes that you can create. So I'll just add a little node like this. That looks great. This is kind of the same sort of shapes, the bubbly shapes that you'd make on a concept plan if you were hand drafting it or doing it in Photoshop, only they're all pre-made for you. So I'm going to call this, and we're going through the workflow as if you're just starting all of this from scratch, of course. So this would be like a wood pergola with a fire pit lounge. Yep. Lounge set. Okay, and I can start putting in maybe some more details about it, like what kind of colors they like, what kind of wood maybe it should be, more detail. I can put in as many details as I want in here. I'm going to leave it blank for now. Usually this kind of setup would probably be about 4 meters or 12 feet, either in a square, but obviously we're just going to have a circle for now. And I can guesstimate how much this is probably going to cost for them. Rough, broad strokes. Again, we're just making a really rough cost estimate to make sure it all fits. I can choose a color. So maybe something wild or subdued. You can choose your color palette. I just clicked on this color. It brought up the true color, and I can click around to pick the right color. I click OK. It picks this true color, and it sets it to it. I can make that a gradient if I want to. I'm going to avoid gradients for the most part today and use them very strategically, just because if you start to use too many gradients, it can really increase the file size on a PDF that you make. So that's a really important point. Now here's a really cool thing. We're also going to add a photo. So these allow you to add a photo. I can go and I can browse. And I've just saved them on my C drive. You can pick a good spot on your computer or your network that would work for this. But I've got some photos already saved up. So I've got pretty much ideally how they want something like this to look. And normally it would load in here, but I'm going to say OK. It is going to load. I'm going to say OK. And there it is. And I can easily just now grab this. This is actually editable in here if you want to, and you can click that little square right there and change the color. And you can go ahead and place this also. So I'll select it, I'll place it. And it automatically sized it to that 4 meters or 12 feet size that this would probably be. So you can see my circle, my bubble was a little bit big. So now I can start to play around with it and kind of place it down somewhere in this corner. I've decided this corner is great because it's isolated. The neighbors don't have much going on in this corner either. So it's a great spot to play some music and chill around a fireplace and talk. So I can also go through and start making some other concept areas. So if I go new on areas, this is what the concept graphics look for areas. I can choose from preset colors. I can also click on one of these blank squares and make my own color. I've actually done that already. So maybe I want something kind of general. I'm just going to do a, let's see, just a paver area. Okay, so I'm going to grab that as my paver area. And we're just going to call it paver area and give it a cost, typically about 150 bucks. I want it to be an area, so I'm not putting a depth. We can go wild and start adding fields in here. We're going to keep it simple today. And I'm going to change that line type to continuous and add a photo. Great. And now I can start placing that. So maybe I want an area over here. I'm just going to kind of draw it in. You might draw it in a bit more, or you will draw it in a lot more accurately. So I'm actually going to freeze this for now so I can start snapping to things. Let's go ahead and freeze that sketch. I've kind of got it memorized. So I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'm doing REC just to get to the rectangle. I like to do a lot of shortcuts, hitting F3 to snap. Snapping in here, and I'll just make that a, we'll give it a dimension of, if that was 4 and 4, maybe like a 6 by 6 meter. And click that in. And now, because this is a movable object, I can kind of move this around, play around with it as I start to refine this drawing and this concept. I can say maybe do a rectangle in here. I'll snap down here, kind of snap over, but maybe I want to extend that, so I can hit F8 for ortho and pop that up a bit. So I've got 2 paver areas for my kitchen and dining area and my lounge area, and I can grab that paver area and just place it in, just like that. It's nice and colored, that color that I want it to be. So with lines, I'll just show you how to make a line. We're going to go new. And I have all of these different line types to choose from. I'm going to go with do a trick and do a solid filled. And we're going to call this paver path, 2 meters or about 6 feet. Again, you can put more details in here, maybe if you want to, about what the pavers are supposed to be, if they're supposed to be like a mid-range or a high-end paver, to coordinate with what you want for your client and want to kind of cost out for them. I'm going to put this at a 2 meter wide path, and that would equal out to about 300 per meter squared. And I've got that solid. I'm going to give it something really close to what I've got over here. Oh, that was actually kind of close over there. And I can put a photo to that one as well and say okay. And I can place this. So if I even just do a polyline, and I'm going to snap into about the midpoint of here and then snap it down. So that's the center line of my 2 meter wide path. I can grab this paver path and just place it on that line. And that fills it all in, just like that. So like imagine as I'm doing that kind of line, you could totally do that for an entire bike path winding around a park or an entire larger area. You can use these to really start to just be able to draw the center line of something and figure out everything. So once we've kind of placed all of these in, it's really, really easy to continue on with this. And we're going to show you like scheduling, cost estimating, all the magic of what we just did here. I'll actually show you over here, and then we're going to do it a little better in just a second. So if I go to schedule and I do drawing and I include photo and cost and quantity and I click OK and I just kind of pop it in there, you can already start to see what this is going to look like with just, I think we did 10 minutes of work there of putting all that together. We're starting to get a total for this project, a lot of great information for the client. Now I could keep going and keep adding one at a time, and obviously you'd have to do that for your first project, but you can see how quickly this is starting to go along. Honestly, for me, for this project that I'm going to show you, it probably took me, I would say, 4 to 5 or 6 hours to even go searching for all the photos, decide where I wanted everything, and then eventually refine it all. But you're going to end up with something like this. But before we get there, I wanted to show you one more way of adding things. So we're kind of jumping ahead, and I want to keep tying everything back to that third step, that template step. So I showed you how fast it was to add things right from the beginning of your workflow, but we want that streamlined workflow. So let's pretend that we've done this before. We've done a few projects. You want to be able to pull from what you did before. You want to be able to pull from a template. So if you have a template set up, and I will show you, I promise, how to set up a template, you can skip all of this new button stuff, and I can go straight to import. So I can go to nodes, I can go to import, I can find my template for my backyard and site hardscape, and I can say okay. And I can grab all sorts of things. So maybe I grab an outdoor kitchen and an outdoor dining set, and I'm holding down Control or Shift to get all of these, a shed, a garden bed, all of that stuff. If for your larger projects, just imagine all the things that you could add in here that you could just pull. They already have photos attached to them. And I just add those all to the project, click done, and they're all in here ready to place. So I just grab it, I place it, and I want my kitchen down here. I'm hitting F3 to turn OSnap back off. There we go. And I want that, I place it, it's about that size. I want it to go up here to relate to the space. I want that tool shed. Like, this is where it starts getting really fast, and you can tell I could do this on my second project. And then again, you just build and build up your library as we go along. I'm going to Xcopy a concept area. I'm not going to use the AutoCAD copy. I'm going to use Xcopy. Grab that, click a base point. It's just like this, and I can kind of say, oh, I want 3 different ones, and I can splay them all out. I can use copy along a line. This is where Xcopy is in the FX Site toolbar. If you don't have FX CAD, you have Xcopy over here. It's a better version of copy to be able to create new block IDs. It works a lot better with Land Effects smart blocks than the regular AutoCAD copy command, just so that you have all of that. Okay, so you can keep going, adding, importing, and quickly getting through this project and getting everything that they want. You can regenerate that schedule. If I just run that schedule again and regenerate it, all of those start to fill in. And you can very quickly get to your filled in site. And I can just go through here. I can run my schedule with everything placed. And I'm just going to pop it in here. And here's all of those photos just filling in. for all of my items. So this is a really great kind of like photo storyboard for your client or for the city or whoever needs to see what this is. Obviously, if I want this to be a bit shorter, I can crop the photo down to make this whole bit a bit shorter. It's expanding to fill the ratio of the photo, so that is totally under your control as to how that works. You can see it's even showing a line type I did a line type for paving stones as well as that paver path over here. So you can see those line types, you can see all of those nodes, everything's in here. And we've started to get a total cost estimate for the whole thing. So you can start going to your client and saying, is this really what you want? I mean, the thing that's pushing it over 100 is that pool. So how are we going to fit this to the budget of the project? And you can pretty much pull all of this off, especially if you start involving templates, easily in a day and really get this project rolling with some smart data. So I've placed this concept graphic schedule here in model space. If you know land effects, you've used it before, you know you can place this in paper space, but I wanted to place this here to show you another little trick, which is this ended up being quite long because of these tall photos and because I just have a lot of things. So I placed it in model space so that when I go over to paper space, I put it into 2 different viewports. You can see these are viewports over here, and viewed it through the viewport so that I could make it into 2 columns on my page and show it right alongside my project. But of course, you can do this a totally different way. As with so many things with these tools, there's options and one way to do things and another way to do things. So another way to do these things is I could just delete these. And then I could go ahead and run a new schedule. And maybe I just include, I'm going to include quantity, but I'm not going to include photo. And say okay, and I'm going to pop that down. And that fits on the sheet if it doesn't have all the photos. But I can use photo callout for all of the photos and kind of place them wherever I want them. So for photo callout, I'm just going to go over here, double click inside this locked viewport. I'm going to go up to site callouts, drop that down, go to photo callout, grab that photo. We'll grab that photo. It is set. I'm just not quite sure why it won't pick it up off of this computer. I did pull it from the local C drive. Let's see if I can reassign it and it'll pick it up. What was that again?
I mean, go ahead and reassign it. I think, that's something we're aware of is sometimes it doesn't show in that dialog, and if you just restart CAD, it'll show fine. And,
I see.
But go ahead and click OK here, and see here.
Yeah,
It's
it did
there.
assign.
We are aware of this one. We've got a case open with OpenDCL on this. But anyway, continue.
Okay, so I'm going to click OK. And there's my photo. I can kind of pop that in and say, hey, this is the photo. Oop, there we go. And I accidentally right-clicked out of it, so it didn't place that leader, but if I clicked twice, it would have placed that leader, along with a little blurb about what it is. So you can kind of see what it ends up looking like. I actually want to just do that correctly. There we go. Bear with me, guys. Okay, there's a photo there. Imagine a photo. Pop that in, scale it in, click, click, there we go. So you can see, okay, so this is what that is. That relates to that on the schedule. That's the takeoff. That's how much it is. That's the total. So you can really start to create a story. This one has some more details behind it. This one has some details about its size. That's how it's all kind of laying out. So we've got a great concept graphic schedule going on, lots of different options on how to do your concept plan. Very smart. And the cool thing is you can go in here and you can start to then refine this. So maybe we want to, just like I was saying, those little cookie cutter or cutout of the shapes of the things you need on your site, whether it's a big development, you might have shapes of buildings that you remember always kind of moving around the sheet of paper to kind of fit it in and puzzle it together. You can do that with these blocks. You can kind of move them around. You can grab any of these rectangles and move them around and adjust them and move the pool a little bit more. It should probably be more over here. You can start to really change all of these things. Maybe it needs to be a bit bigger, a bit smaller, all of that. You can start to fine tune and adjust it with your insight and your clients' desires based on of once they see that initial sticker shock and they're like, okay, maybe I don't need the high end of this and I can get the mid range of that, and we can decrease the amount of pavers and increase the amount of aggregate. You can start making all those decisions on the fly really quickly. You could even pull this plan up in front of them and start moving things around with them there if you really wanted to. It's really that easy, and then you just regenerate the schedule in your and they can see it kind of change in front of their eyes and they think you're magic. But it's just land effects. You just know how to use it. You just know how to use the tools. Okay, so we've done all of that. We've kind of talked about connecting this to a template. It's all easy once you have it all set up. So I just wanted to talk again about larger projects because I know that we are doing this on a very small, simple project. Just think like you can kind of swap out these mid-range for a high-end concept paver item. You can do things like for larger projects, think maybe a retaining wall amphitheater versus a freestanding bench amphitheater. And maybe you have just a really simple node like this, but you have the cost estimates of what each of those should be. And you can kind of just swap out the different nodes and run a different schedule and get a different cost. You can refine that entire walking path layout length of a whole park to the budget of the city that wants to build the park with concept lines before spending time on all the intricate line work and trimming it all with junctions and all of that. You can just do it with concept lines just like this throughout your entire plan. So really scalable to as big as you need it. Or another idea is like doing a rough budget and of asphalt versus reinforced grass for parking, either small scale for a single driveway or right up to large scale for a concert venue parking lot. You can kind of adjust between those two areas until you get just the right budget, and then you can go and refine everything with where the parking spots all are and where the islands all are and everything. So there's a lot of ways to use the concept graphics to your end design's advantage. So let's move on to the next part. Obviously, once you've kind of done this, you've gone through and you've refined a little bit. So you've moved things around, you've got a better shape for a lot of things, a better flow and organization for everything, added a few more areas. You want to start making this into an actual construction document. You can see I've even added in some fencing along here as a concept line as well. You can kind of see how that uses a totally different line type. Nice and easy to read. Now we want to get into construction with details and everything. So let's get into that. So I'm going to close down my concept graphics and we're going to move into reference notes. So still on FX site, going over to reference notes. Okay, so I've already added in a few things, but you can go in and say you can grab an area And let's say we wanted some pavers in one of these. So you have some options when you're starting out brand new and you don't have a template yet. So I'm adding an area. I want pavers. I have some options. I can pick from one of the supported manufacturers who have worked with us to get their items into Land Effects. If your guy isn't in here, please reach out to them and also to us so that we can start talking together with them and get them in here. Because once they're in here, this is how easy it is. I like all of these actually. I'll just grab, I'll grab Unilock for now. And we want something like Brussels block, a mid-range paver. We've decided on this. We've talked about it with the client. We have all of these different patterns for you to choose from. So I can just go ahead and grab one and a nice random looking Brussels block pattern. I can add that to the project. And just using that manufacturer connection, I'm going to add that to continuous. I've got it all filled out. I can edit this however I want to, maybe add in the color. It will default to number 1, but you can see over here that I really like to start using divisions to really organize my reference note list. So you can easily do that right out of the box with Land Effects, or you can customize all of these to your own divisions. I love CSI. If you've talked to me, you know why. So I'll just put this under unit paving, and there we go. It has organized itself. I can put a cost. Maybe these guys are normally about 120, save a little bit of money there. I can assign it to a detail. I'll show you an example of that in just a sec. I can also start adding user fields in here, but that's another webinar entirely. So I can also continue and add photos to these just like I could with the concept. I'm just going to do that, say okay. So that's added that right here. I can go ahead and start placing that down. So I can grab that, I can place it, and I can grab that and place it in. And I am going to, my lines are a little bit close, so I'm just going to zoom in and grab that one. It's already associated. I'm going to switch it off of that concept object, that concept area, and into a real live ref note. So in here, because this was a concept line, I actually need to grab that one and delete it. But I wanted to show you, that's basically how you place a regular, create and place a regular reference note. If you want to go more into that, we have a lot of great documentation. You can keep going through this step by step. Again, we have lengths and we have amenities. So they're very similar processes, and volumes are just areas with a depth associated with them. So if I kind of go, I'll show you what they look like since I've already made a few. But if I grab that one and edit it, you can see this just has a depth to it for the aggregate, and it gives me a volume. For lengths, if I edit that, that's actually just associated with a layer. So same process to make it. Instead of associating it with a symbol, it's just associated with a layer. And what I can actually do with that, if I cancel out of here, is I can grab this. So this is my concept line, and you can see it's actually a block reference. So I can use fexplode, grab that concept line, it transforms it back into a polyline. This is a great method to use if you made a concept line and you need to adjust its shape and then want to transform it back to a concept line. That's basically how you do that. And once I've got that, I can just throw it onto the propose. Oh, I don't quite have it in here. So I can go and place one of these. There we go. That's created that layer that I associated with this with. And now I have that layer in here. And just from, oh, there it is. There we go. So that will be counted up and I can go to my lines and I can click on that line and I can transform it into a privacy fence with post spacing so that it looks nice for my design. And as we go through here, I did kind of want to show, let's show importing from a template as well. So if I'm actually going to do a little bit of movie magic here. Don't look behind the curtain as I go to my empty project that we created before, because I wanted to show you importing, but I actually already have the thing I want in here. So don't pay attention to what I'm doing right now. Yes. There we go. Okay. There we go. So I've got nothing in here right now, but say I wanted to import from my template like I did with the concept plans. I can do that too, or sorry, the concept graphics. So let's say I go to an amenity and I want to import that kitchen module. I can very easily do that. I can just go find that backyard site and hardscape template that I created before, find that kitchen module. Might be down, there it is. Add that to the project, click done, and there it is. I can edit that and you can see all the information I have about it. And actually I can also associate this with a detail. If it had a detail associated with it before, that would have come in. That's why it's not in. I can add a detail. I will just grab the one I had set up before, that one. There we go. So if that was associated in my template, that would have also just come in instantly. But with all of that set up, I can do a lot of really cool things. Like I can place that and just kind of place that in here. It's going to automatically ask me to rotate it. I hit F8 to just get it along there. And I can do things like call that out. I can schedule it. I actually have it in here to show you. So I've placed that in. I can call that out using this callout tool on my reference note plan. And I can make sure I place that detail. So I had added that detail into my project before. There it is. We're going to add that as a detail sheet. There it is. If you want to learn how to make one of these, we have some short videos and long videos on how to do that. But with that placed, I can go in here, I can run a schedule. And I've already kind of imported a lot of other things and gone ahead and placed them around. Some areas, I imported a new pool from my template. I imported some stepping stones and did a copy along polyline. But if I run a schedule, I'm just going to do it with code. And I'm going to include detail and quantity. I get a nice professional looking, these all have different call out styles based on how I've set them in the reference notes, but with quantity, you can see that detail is linked right here. Because I pulled it in from a template, it would be there. I can also adjust this so I can see that call out, or I can call out in paper space if I want to. Everything's pretty much a block, so it's really easy to move around now that I have it here and kind of adjust things and quickly get my plan together. Okay, I know I glossed over a few things in there. During questions, we can go through them a bit more in depth if you want to, but you can see all of the reference notes that I've created in here. So the first time it would be just as quick as when I created that Unilock Brussels block area, and I just clicked to place it, and I just started clicking to place it in different areas. I did the same thing with the random flagstone and the pea stone. I grabbed this pool is actually from our default blocks. Pretty much everything in here is from our default blocks. So I was just able to grab them, put in the information, and place them. But then, of course, with templates, once you add something to a template, I can just import that and place it. So I skip the creating step. So that's the last step we want to focus on, is creating that template. I have this whole thing created. Let's say I created all of this from scratch, this whole list of reference notes, and also under FX site of these concept graphics. I have all of these, and I don't want to lose them. Maybe I can remember that these guys are in this project, and when I do the next project, it'll have all of their stuff, but I kind of want it all in one spot to be able to pull from. So it's really, really easy to do it. Like, this is literally the easiest step of everything we're going to do today, which is great because we don't have a lot of time to do it. So we're going to go to FX admin. We're going to go to that project list. So we started with project list. We're ending with project list. And you are going to do this for every project. You guys got to promise me, because that will make it worth all of your while. So you highlight your project that you're working with. We saved ours up here, so you could go through and highlight that project. This is my more complete version of that. So I am just going to click Save as Template. And I happen to have a template already here. So I'm just going to save as template, and I'm going to call this something else. I'm going to call it Webinar Hardscape. You can call these templates anything you want. So I'm going to say, okay, template created. There it is. So now that's a new template that I can import from on any new project. Anything blank, I can go through, grab all of these, everything I need, including all of those details. Link them all together, place them, bing, bang, boom. As long as I've had a previous project, I have a new project ready to go. Another big question, how to edit your template, because I said I want this to be a step for you guys at the end of every project. So you're going to refine this template over time. You're going to, at the end of each project, get bids in from contractors, or be able to get that information of how much things actually cost, or if there were any problems with the description that you need to change in your template. And you are going to adjust all of those items in your template for either what they cost to install, or if you're design build, if you wanted that to be an estimate for your client or for yourself, however much you want that cost to be. So you can also start adding more versions of similar items and really build out your template. Here's how you're going to do that. To edit this, you are going to click New. And I am actually going to do this on a new drawing. So I'm going to start a new drawing from the acad.dwt. Great. Okay. And go to project list, go to template, or we're actually just going to click New. There we go. Oh, it wants me to, I'm going to go here and click New. There we go. And I'm just going to call this 000, and this is a template temp, because I'm going to delete it later. I'm going to make sure it's the right preference set, but I'm going to set it to my webinar Hardscape. And it's going to bring in everything that's in my webinar Hardscape. I don't necessarily need sheets. I do need ref notes and details though. Oops, 0. There we go. Okay, so now I have this. I'm going to remove that detail folder because I actually don't want that in my template. I can click OK. There are all of my items. I can go in here. I can start importing from other projects that I've done and add new items to the template. I can go in here and edit any one of these and make changes to anything, maybe change the cost. And then once I'm done, I go back to my project list I select my temp. I go to Save as Template. I call it Webinar Hardscape, exactly the same as before. Click OK, and it's going to ask me if I want to overwrite it, and you click Yes. Template is created, and it's actually overwritten this. So that's how you update a template. So that's the whole life cycle. So we went from starting from scratch, all the way through concept, all the way through reference notes, created a template from it, and now we're ready to start right back at the beginning where we started project from scratch. But this time we pretty much import almost everything except for any new items that we need to create. Then at the end, we update our template, and we just keep going on like that for every single project. And over even just 6 months, you're going to be amazed with how much information you have stored in that template. You might split it out into multiple templates. Lots of great things. So it's faster and it's easier for you to plug and play with your design with all of these tools, make edits, and check to make sure you're still in budget for everything, and do it all very quickly. So we are at the end of our webinar of this workflow. So now would be a great time to go through any questions. So if now pull up that Q&A box. If you wanted me to go through something I might have skimmed over a little bit, I'm happy to do that. Do know that if there was anything that you thought I skimmed over that we don't get to, you can always go through in here. Maybe you're like, oh, you kind of went over photo callouts, but I didn't quite get it. You can always hover over something like that and hit F1, and it's going to open up our help page on that specific tool, so you can find more videos and find more information. But Jared, did we have any questions right off the bat?
Well, I think you wowed everybody so much that they have paralyzed them. But I just do a reminder, like you said, this is, and it's a newer feature. But yet watching you do it, I'm not seeing all the little things that, little wish list items that I want to improve. I think it's really gotten a great maturity level. Even though it's a good 5 to 7 years behind, for instance, the irrigation and planting modules,
Yeah.
which is it's a lot of development effort. But we did get a question that rolled in from Julie, and just saying that sometimes their PDF plans with photo callouts tend to be really large file sizes.
Yeah.
And well, with the one thing you can do is you can use a PDF editing software to flatten it to just a image, or it's rendering to an image. Do you know the term? But it's also literally
Yeah.
just taking a screenshot of the PDF and making a JPEG of it. Um, Other than, of course, the gradients, but I've not heard of one being ballooned up by just the photos. But
I
you're going
could
to comment on
totally
those
imagine that
gradients?
happening. Yeah, if it would depend on the photos, and I kind of strategically searched out photos that weren't too big as JPEGs. Like I had them as JPEGs. Avoid TIFF with everything you've got. They are huge files and you just don't need it. So maybe resave a lot of your library photos to smaller JPEGs, because think of just the resolution you only need it on a sheet of paper. You don't really need it that big of a resolution, especially if you're doing it in the schedule. So go for a smaller image size in general, because when you export from CAD, it only exports as vector. There's no way to export as render to a PDF straight from CAD, or is it vector and raster? You can only do vector. So when you do vector PDF, it's actually like it's including the image scaled down. So if it was a 5,000 pixel 15 megabyte image to begin with, then it's still that 15 megabyte image just scaled down, and now in a larger PDF you start to that's how you add up all of that file size. So start with smaller files for your photo library, and like Jer said, like I mentioned before, reduce the amount of gradients. Those also stack up in vector PDFs, but then you can always flatten or convert to raster in a PDF editor. you just can't do it straight from CAD.
Exactly. And then, yeah, Steve Cook chimed in with the PDF software that they use, the infra view,
Okay.
and you can see that in the answers. And then one last one, Kevin asked if there's plans to have more than one detail. And we're definitely aware of that. And, we just have to figure out how to make that change because it'll, of course, involve a database change as well as all the dialog boxes. And um, and admittedly, one of the things that you think is silly, at least for me, as a so like a systems engineer thing, someone goes, "Oh, I need to assign more than one detail," and I'm like, "Okay, I can add that feature." But then the second I start talking to people, and I go, "So you need to assign up to two details." Instantly, I find someone go, maybe three sometimes. And so I'm like, okay, so three is the maximum. And then some joker will say, well, I don't know, we've had times where we need to assign four details. And so I think, just limiting the scope of the request. So is it two details maximum or three? Or because we've got all these dialog boxes that need to either stretch or be permanently lengthened, and then make all the database changes to be able to associate more than one detail. So it's going to be a heck of a change, and we definitely have that on our radar.
Yep, and I'll probably sneak in here if I right click at this point of placing the detail and I choose naked callout style. Just wanting to point this out that this might help you out, Kevin. And we do have a, yeah, check this out. We've just documented it, but these are actually now fields that you can copy and paste into other M text. So that would help you out just a little bit. But in terms of actually associating it to the ref note, everything that Jer said applies.
Yeah, so we'll be getting there. I think at this point, I don't see it getting on the calendar for this year, but we'll see. But I think early next year is where we're thinking. We really do need to get that addressed. It's just, again, when something's a really big job, it's just unfortunately a lot easier to focus on all the little jobs, and it just kind of keeps kicking the can down. But we definitely will get to that. But guess what? I think it's that time.
I
We've
think it
we've
is.
blown through another hour, gone through some cool stuff. Like I said, please, please, please share your experiences with these features and other, related features that you feel would go with these, improvements on these. That's we absolutely need that. So we don't want to just always think that we can speak for users. We want to hear your unique perspectives on these. And have a great and safe weekend, everybody.